Welcome back. We got Keith here. Keith is the marketing director at CrossFit. He's been doing CrossFit himself since 2008, but just this year got his role at the company, and he's been loving it so far. He talks a little bit about the company, what the company's goals are now, how marketing was viewed in the past and now how it's viewed at CrossFit, and kind of how they're working between those two things and trying to progress on their goals in that sense. But yeah, he's got an awesome history, and I hope you can learn a bit from his background. All right, everyone, we got Keith here. Keith Knapp, is that how you say your last name? Awesome. Keith Knapp. How's it going?
We came over from Germany. It used to be Knapp, but the folks here couldn't figure out how to pronounce it, so it is now Knapp.
Oh, interesting. Very cool. All right. So what's your background? What are you doing then? What's your background?
Yeah. So right now, marketing director at CrossFit HQ. And my background is a wild ride. I'll give you as short of a version as I can on the professional side. I came out of my undergrad, political science, pre-law, legal studies, and thought for sure I was going to go to law school. I took a job at a congressional office and a field office right out of undergrad to raise money to go to law school. And while I was there, our deputy chief of staff, he had kind of made it his mission in life, I think, to dissuade people from going to law school. He was an attorney himself, but was not practicing. And he kind of asked me the question, like, why do you want to go to law school? And I wanted to go to law school because I thought I wanted to be a lobbyist. And he was like, look, you don't have to be an attorney to be a lobbyist, so you should just go get an MBA instead. Like, you already understand the writing side from your undergrad. You already understand the logic side from your undergrad. But if you're going to be a lobbyist, you're going to be talking to businesses and to entities that make money. Like, you should understand the financial side. So that drove me back into get an MBA, which I did at nights while I was still there. Did that for a couple of years, loved it. It was a really awesome opportunity to learn how to talk to people. I worked for the first year and a half that I was there. I worked at the front desk. So I was like the staff assistant. And every person who came in the office, whether they were a constituent or whether they were a business leader or whether they were another congressperson, I was the first line of defense, right? Like, so it was having to have that conversation with people, understand what their tension was, understand what they needed done, and to figure out how to solve that problem for them. Learned a ton in that job and loved it. But then I got an opportunity to go work for it was a trade association, national trade association called the National Real Estate Investors Association. Went there, started in account management, kind of working on the benefits side. So it was a trade association, so it basically offered benefits to its members. So did a lot of like work with the partners that we offered benefits through. But then about 6 months into that job, our executive director came to us and said, hey, Keith, like, would you want to take over our legislative affairs program? And I'm like, yeah, I would. I want to be a lobbyist. This is going to be awesome. And took it over and did not like it at all. It was just not awesome. I spent a lot of time in DC during that time and was just like, yeah, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And so it was awesome to get that learning early in my career because I was able to make a shift pretty quickly, right? I was only 24 years old and made a pretty dramatic shift from thinking I was going to do politics and lobbying to what else can I go do? And took a role with an internet marketing company that did end-to-end service for small to medium-sized businesses. And so that was like website design and development, social media consulting. We did PR consulting. We did SEO and SEM, kind of everything, right? Did account management there, loved it, had a blast, met a lot of cool businesses, learned a ton about like how small to medium-sized businesses function, like what are their challenges, what do they deal with? And through that, I met a guy who was running a tech startup out of an accelerator here in Cincinnati, which is where I'm from. And I went to work for him, led marketing communications for him for a while. And then I got an offer in 2011 to go join Procter & Gamble. And that was like right before our first daughter was going to be born. It's like, right now I'm working kind of part-time for an internet marketing company, kind of part-time for a national trade association, kind of part-time, but also full-time for a tech company. It'd be really cool to have like a real full-time, like hard job to go tackle. So I was like, that seems like a really good idea. And being from Cincinnati, like everybody has this aspiration, I think, just by, drive downtown, you see the towers at P&G, and you're like, that'd be a cool place to go work. And so I took that, I jumped on it and spent almost a decade there. Started at P&G in communications. And I worked on the oral care business. That was, like I said, 2011. That was right when social media was like starting to be a thing that companies cared about, right? It was a wild time in the world of social. I spent 6 months doing really traditional communications and brand comms for our oral care businesses, and then got tasked with running social engagement strategy for all of our oral care businesses in North America. And it was cool because that was at a time when social was like all about having a really genuine, authentic conversation from the perspective of the brand to people. And there was, at that time, there was no paid, there was no like DTC wasn't as much of a thing as it is today, right? It was just like, go have a conversation and try to generate awareness for the brand. There was like this weird time in the history of Facebook where like you could kind of run ads, but it was all about growing users. It was, or like followers on your fan page. Like it was so weird, right? But that was like my intro to social and to DTC in some senses. But because of my history in kind of the startup side and small business side, I got asked to go work on a brand in our new business organization. So made a transition out of communications into brand marketing on the new business creation group, right? And that was like 2 years into my career at P&G, and then I never left. It was like, I'm staying here and doing this new business thing. It was awesome. In my 7 years in that organization, we launched 7 new brands. Had an opportunity to kind of work on really big business opportunities. So we had one brand the first brand that I worked on there was actually in joint venture partnership with a big appliance maker. So it was really cool to like, hey, this isn't really a consumable good. It's like a device plus a consumable. It was like testing a completely different model and a completely different consumer tension. So I love doing that. And then I spent, like I said, 7 years in that group, launching new brands, coming up with new ideas, testing new concepts and insights, and really got to dig in like all the way into DTC at that time. Because all the testing that we were doing for those brands was like, let's spin up a website, drive some traffic, determine what conversion rates are, what interest is. And I mean, learned more than you can imagine. Like in that period of 7 years, it felt like my MBA, but amplified by 10. Like it was so much more valuable than like going and sitting in a classroom. And then during that time, I also had like the itch. I think everybody who spends time in a professional context, working on new businesses or working on like goods like that, ends up saying like, well, man, like if we're doing it at this scale and we are learning all about other entrepreneurs that are doing it at a certain other scale, like why couldn't I just do it? So I launched 2 businesses on my own. Spent a couple of years almost like just driving myself insane. I launched a woodworking business that was all, I spent 3 years just absolutely massacring things in our garage. We got a 3-car garage, which is now a full gym. But I spent 3 years woodworking, building furniture and all reclaimed wood. So I did like all the salvage, all of the reclamation work. Like we tore down a couple of barns. Like I had a storage unit full of beams, like all kinds of crazy stuff. Did that for 3 years, like while I was still working at P&G. And then I launched a fragrance business, a men's fragrance line, which was a lot of fun. Did that for about a year, just kind of like really low key, like testing ideas and things like that. But realized through that and through some other work that I was doing on one of the projects I was leading at P&G that like maybe it was time to think about an exit. Eventually left and went to work for an innovation firm, so a strategy and innovation consulting firm that did work with Fortune 500s, big companies on new businesses, new business models, and scaling new innovations. So there's a lot of what I was doing at P&G, but I was doing it for clients at that time. Man, I started that job in February of 2020. A month later, I mean, it wasn't even a full month. It was like 2 weeks later. Everything shut down. The whole world shut down, right? We were all like, go home, stay home. Everybody's business's model shifted, including our own. I was hired into that job as a regional leadership, kind of in a regional leadership role. And when everything collapsed, we like centralized. It was like, we are not East Coast and West Coast. We are just one team. And when we did that, it was like, all right, well, your job doesn't really, like, we don't need you in a lot of ways. And I kind of in one way saw this coming because I was on the leadership team and we'd been having these conversations, and in a certain like way, I kind of teed that up. But my role was eliminated in October of that year. The day after, Solomon, that I found out that my role was eliminated, I got a call, a cold outreach call from a bike company here in town. They said, hey, we've been looking at your LinkedIn profile. We think you'd be a great fit for a role we have coming up. And would you be interested? And I said, yes. When can I start? Right. And I started 2 weeks later. It was just like this complete gift. I found out that my role was going to be eliminated. And there's a lot of ways that people can take that. Like, you could get defensive, or you could get frustrated, or you could get angry. I was like, man, this is going to be great. Like, there's something that's going to like good that's going to come out of this. And it didn't even take a whole day. Right. It was really cool. But I got a chance at that time to go work in a completely different industry in a completely different way, which was bikes. Like, I worked for a premium bike brand as the head of direct to consumer. So it was taking all the things I knew about DTC in a consumer capacity, like consumer goods capacity, and figuring out how to fit that into a premium product, which was somewhere between $2,000 and $10,000. So how do you take that learning about jobs and consumer tensions and all that kind of stuff and apply it to a really expensive product? Love that. Had a really good time. But I have been doing CrossFit since 2008, all the way back to what I'm doing now. Right. And while I was working on a project at P&G, we had this project that I was leading, like 2017, 2018. We were exploring this tension that everyone wants to feel better, but no one knows what to do about it. And even if they did pick something, there's not a really good way for them to determine whether it's working. So they tried a new diet. Like, the only good like consumer level proxy that we have for whether something's working is like, are you losing weight? And that's a terrible proxy, right? Like, for most people, that's like, it's almost a useless metric. So I was doing research for that project, spent a ton of time, like really digging into a lot of like research in a way that I hadn't in probably any other project I'd worked on. But every like insight that I pulled on, every like tangent that I went down, it all landed back at CrossFit.com. Like, every single one. It was like, you should eat better. Well, guess what the foundation of CrossFit is nutrition. Or you should do functional movements because that's the best way to train your body holistically. Well, guess what CrossFit is? It's constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity. I was like, oh man, everything just keeps pulling me down to the same like end point. So I knew in 2017, 2018 that that's where eventually I would like to get to. Like, it's been a passion of mine since day one. I was also a collegiate athlete. So like, getting into that space felt right. And by random chance, had an opportunity to get connected to the CrossFit team through a guy you may actually know, Taylor Sicard. He was working, he does, right now he's working on Uptime, which is a Shopify app, but has also done some other work. And I've known him from some other work that I was doing at P&G. And he was working on a project with some folks over at CrossFit and said, hey, like, I think you should just get looped into this project. And so got looped in, potentially in a consultative capacity. And eventually that project didn't, like, nothing with that project panned out, but I was talking to the guy who was leading it. And I said, hey, like, this is where I want to be. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, I can't imagine another thing that would be more appropriately fit for what I love to do, what I'm passionate about, and like what I care about. And he was like, just talk to our CMO. He put us in contact, and that was like in February of this year. So it took a little bit of time to like land the plane. But every conversation that I had from the first introduction all the way up to getting, getting on board and in the middle of July it felt unreal. And so that's what I'm doing now, right? I'm spending every day like wrapped up in this, like, almost a dream state. I still wake up every morning like, I don't even know if this is my life. Because it's cool. I mean, you hear like people talk about it all the time. Like, if you can figure out how to line up what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what you love into one thing, like, chase that shit down like there is no tomorrow, right? And that's what I'm doing. Like, I wake up every morning, I look at my calendar, I'm like, man, I can't wait to have this conversation. I feel like not many people get a chance to say that. Right. I got a little glimpse of it when I was working at the bike company, because at the end of the day, it was like, dude, we're selling bikes. Like, this is fun. But having an opportunity to sit down with people that are just so driven to serve, like the community that I work with every day at CrossFit, is unreal. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you've been doing it since 2008. So you're in it.
Yeah, man. I started doing CrossFit in my garage in college, my last year of collegiate track. So I ran cross country and track. I was on scholarship to run cross country. Track was kind of an added bonus. And I was a distance guy. I mean, it's hard to think back to that time, but I was 145 pounds at racing weight. Like, I was 6 foot tall, 145 pounds. And I ran the 10K and the steeplechase, like long distance stuff. And I had been doing that. I started running competitively when I was in 6th grade, right? So I spent a huge portion of my life doing almost all endurance stuff. And I started doing CrossFit because I was going to try the decathlon for my senior year in track. And I was like, I need to get stronger and faster and more powerful. So, like, let's find an option. And a buddy of mine who was kind of already doing it said, you should try CrossFit. I did one workout and I never did the decathlon. Because I was like, I'm just going to keep doing this thing. Right. It was awesome. So I fell in love with it right away. And that fire has not gone out. I think that's one of the cool things about CrossFit. And one of the things we hear from our community all the time is, I mean, the number one, like, the first 2 words in the description of CrossFit, constantly varied, means that you can't get bored, right? Like, if you show up one day and you could be doing a max rep deadlift, a max 1 rep deadlift, and then the next day you could be doing a 5K run, like, for time. It's just like the way that we think about programming and the way that the methodology thinks about variance makes it almost impossible to get bored, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, knowing what CrossFit is, and that anyone on the street, like, if you mention CrossFit to them, they'd probably know what it is. What does the marketing director mean for you? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting question, or the way that you pose that question is really interesting. And it's actually underlying the tension that we're trying to solve right now. You're right.
That was going to be my other question eventually, was like, what tensions are you trying to solve right now, if any? Like, what are the things you're trying to break through? So this is perfect.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this is like, you're almost teeing this up too perfectly for me, right? Because it lines up with exactly what we're trying to solve right now. You're right. If you say CrossFit, there are very few people that don't understand what that is, at least in their own way. They've heard of CrossFit. They've seen CrossFit. Somebody in their family or somebody in their network does it and doesn't shut up about it. And like, that's right. Like, that's kind of like the magic of the word of mouth exposure that we kind of rely on in a lot of ways. So everybody knows about CrossFit, but very few people actually understand it. So that's the tension that we're trying to overcome. Most people who are in the space, who spend time at a gym regularly or who work out regularly, get it for the most part. So and that's like a pretty small percentage of the average population. Then there's a huge group of people that have heard about CrossFit and think it's dangerous because of some false media that was published many years ago that still sits in the kind of conscious mind of most people, or a lot of people. They think it's intimidating. They don't think they're fit enough to try it, or they think that they're just not good. It's not for them. They're not good enough for it. And our job, the job of my marketing and media team, is to help debunk those myths, right? And when we ask our community of people who do CrossFit, our community of coaches, or our community of affiliate owners, what do you want help with? They say, we need you to tell people these things aren't true, right? So that's what our big task is right now. It's trying to create more awareness, more of the right awareness, and to create some better brand perception understanding, right? Because the brand is known without a doubt. The perception of it is a little bit cloudy for a big part of the population that we know we need to go talk to. That's another big challenge is we're pretty locked down with like tip of the spear folks, like people who are already really interested in fitness. There's a huge portion of the population who really need CrossFit. Folks who are struggling with chronic diseases, folks who are dealing with weight issues, folks who have mental health challenges with depression or anxiety. Like, we know that if you come into a CrossFit affiliate, if you embed yourself in that community, if you dedicate yourself to just showing up and putting in the work, those things get fixed, right? And that's one of the other really cool things about it, and what drove me like kind of down the rabbit hole every time back to CrossFit is like, if no matter what you look at, what challenge you're dealing with, if you go do CrossFit, it helps. It won't necessarily take everything completely away. We're not calling this like a cure-all, but it will help you get back on the right path. And that's really cool.
Okay. Yeah. So can you break down what your company structure is like to help people? Like, I think there's a bunch of marketers that are going to listen to this and they want to know kind of how you are trying to tackle that challenge, and how you're trying to do it with your different avenues of, so you got you got the affiliates, right? Which are gyms, the boxes, whatever you call them. The games, you got Noble, Rogue, Thorn. Is that right? What else?
Yeah. So we'll break it down into like 3 lines of business is kind of what we call them, right? So we have the affiliate or the gym line of business. We have the education or the training line of business, and we have sport or games. Those are the 3 lines of business. And we'll start kind of at the clearest introduction to the user, and that's education and training, right? We have a whole suite of educational kind of solutions that help people learn about CrossFit, learn the methodology, learn how to move well or teach movement well. And anybody who wants to eventually coach CrossFit has to go through that process, right? The L1, the level 1 certificate course is kind of step 1. And that's where we introduce people to like the foundation of the methodology. Like, we take them through all the different things that we believe, all the different definitions that we've assigned to things that prior to CrossFit were never defined. We define fitness, we define strength, we define power, we do that in a way that prior to CrossFit was never done. So that's kind of the first phase. And so that training and education piece is a big part of our business, right? There are hundreds of thousands of CrossFit trainers and coaches across the world at this point who have, at varying levels, been trained in how to effectively coach people, how to understand what good movement looks like, to make sure that when they are coaching a class, it's safe, it's efficient, and it's effective. That doesn't happen in a lot of other places. So that we are really excited about, and that's been at the core, at the absolute heart of CrossFit from day one. Like, the coached experience is something that you'll get in a CrossFit gym that you won't get anywhere else. So that's kind of piece one. Piece two is the affiliate model, right? We empower small businesses all over the world. More than 13,000 small businesses all over the world rely on CrossFit to they put that brand name on their business, and their customer, the user of CrossFit, recognizes what that is. Like we talked about, the brand is incredibly powerful. You search CrossFit just do a quick Google trend search CrossFit and put any other fitness methodology alongside of it, and CrossFit will far outpace any other methodology that you can think of. Do running, do Orange Theory, do Soul Cycle, whatever you want. Those things have certain, I think, cachet in the public space for a period of time. But if you look at that on the Google Trends layout, like, CrossFit wins hands down every time, which is something that we're really proud of and something that we're excited about. But that's what the affiliate model is. They sign up through an affiliate license to be able to use our name on their gym. And in order to do that, they have to be educated through CrossFit. So that's, again, why education is at the core. If you put our name on your gym, people that walk in can expect a really great coach experience. They can expect an environment where they're watched on and cared for and served in a safe way. And so that's kind of pillar two. And then pillar three or line of business three is sport. And this is like something that has been a continually evolving piece of our brand. The CrossFit Games are the only competition in the world that tests like true fitness in its whole, biggest view, right? Every other sport has there's specialization in those sports. I actually was tweeting about this a couple of weeks ago. Somebody was talking about Kipchoge just ran another world record marathon. Unreal. I'm a distance runner. When I watched the documentary that Nike made of him breaking 2, I cried, right? Like, this, we're not talking, trying to say that other athletes are not amazing. There's nothing about what we're saying that tries to debunk that. But if you look at what his capacities are across the 10 general skills, you'll see endurance, 100%. Nobody's got it better than him. Speed. He's fast enough to run 440 or 430 miles for 26 in a row. That's fast for the average person. But in a 100-yard dash, he's going to get creamed by most other people, right? So speed is kind of there, but not great. Strength. He's 115 pounds. So you go ask the guy to deadlift 400 pounds. It's not happening. It's just not. What we test at the CrossFit Games is well-roundedness. We believe in general physical preparedness, GPP, that anything we throw at you at any given time, you can tackle. And that's one of the things that, as a dad, I really love about CrossFit. It's being ready for anything. If I have to do X, Y, or Z because my kid is in harm's way, I have confidence that because of my training, I can go do that. If I need to help a friend move, I don't have to say no because I'm afraid that I'm going to get winded walking up the steps. If I have to, help somebody carry groceries, or help an elderly woman carry her groceries across the street at some point in time, I can say yes to those things. Right. And that's what the CrossFit Games is about, is finding the people that are statistically more capable across a general set of challenges than anyone else. And what we watch every year when the CrossFit Games comes on is nothing short of just crazy. It's bananas. The capacities that these athletes have are unreal. We've got athletes that are unreal strong, just crazy strong, crazy fast, crazy fit from a cardiovascular perspective. It's super amazing, right? And this year, something really cool happened at the games where in one of the events, and anybody listening or you should totally go look this up. There was an event called the Capitol. And what happened at that event was, and this is something that's, I think, very unique to CrossFit. The person who finished dead last in that event was struggling. Like, it was a very long event. It was a long run that was preceded by a bunch of what they call pig flips, which is essentially kind of a really heavy tire flip. They did a long run after that. Then they had to carry jerry bags. They were like 200-pound bags, kind of in a farmer's carry style. And then they had to pick up a 200-pound for men and 150-pound bag, sandbag, called a Hustafel bag, and walk like 200 yards up the steps of the Capitol building in Madison, Wisconsin. Super grueling test. And the person who finished last was struggling, like really, really struggling. And what happened organically, this just like popped up. Everybody who was a spectator at that event went wild, just absolutely wild. Cheering for her. I mean, there were kids that were on their way to school that were part of this like cheering crowd that like just organically popped up and said, like, we see somebody doing something that is just incredible. We want to be a part of it. Right. And you see at the end of this event, like the whole community rallies around, and what that created was this dialogue in the community that like, that's CrossFit. That happens every single day inside affiliates. And that's something that I've loved about it since day one is the community that we build inside those affiliate in those affiliate gyms is unmatched. Like, you don't get that experience anywhere else, where no matter who you are, what you can do, what you bring into it, if you show up and do that work, everybody knows what you did. Like, they did it too. And you will be celebrated and exalted in a way that you won't be anywhere else. So it's really cool. And that's the sports side of it. The sport is a real test of capacity and fitness for amazing athletes, but it also showcases in a lot of ways like the benefit of what happens every day for the rest of the community.
So what are your guys' main marketing channels, would you say? Because, when everyone knows what CrossFit is and you're trying to figure out how to clarify that for the population, how do you guys do that? Is that a lot of brand awareness ads? Is that, how do you guys go about that?
Yeah. So CrossFit was started in 2000, and up until 2021, marketing was a dirty word. It was a word that nobody used inside the company.
You said until when? 2021?
2021. Like,
wow,
for 21
really?
years of CrossFit's history, marketing was a dirty word. And in some cases it still is. It's a really interesting place where our content and what we create is our marketing. For all intents and purposes, we've very recently started doing some content creation that is more ad-like. But at the end of the day, most of what works really well in this space is just telling the stories. We've got an unbelievable world-class media team that knows how to pull stories and pull that out of people that are doing CrossFit every day. And that's another really cool thing about this kind of ecosystem is when you have people of all different shapes and sizes, of all different backgrounds, showing up to do really, really hard things on purpose every single day, and it changes their life. The stories that are just part and parcel of that actually happening are incredible. We've got over 500 million, so like 500 million views on our YouTube channel since we launched the YouTube channel in 2008. Right, like creating content and telling the story of the people who do CrossFit is our bread and butter, and it always has been. I can't imagine it won't always be. So we've got, like I said, an amazing media team that does that work. One of the things that we are trying to do from a marketing perspective, now that marketing is a word that we're allowed to say, it's not always taken well still, but it's a word we're allowed to say, is to help distribute that content to in that story, to help tell that story to a broader audience. Up until, like I said, 2021, we were telling that story to our own audience. And that's not to say that our audience is small. We've got a daily newsletter, the email of the day, that goes out to over 500,000 people every single day. When I say that to people who are like in the performance marketing space, to somebody who like has to, or not doesn't have to, but who does pay for a lot of their traffic, they're like, you send out an email to 500,000 people every single day. It's crazy, right? And that's because the content that we create is really valuable for our community. They love it. They eat it up. So it's not to say that we don't tell that story to a big audience, but we haven't traditionally done a great job of like, hey, this works really well for our audience. Now, who else needs to hear it? And so we've recently started doing some work on the PR side. We've recently started celebrating the impact of our seminar level staff. So we've got, I mentioned the L1 earlier. The people who teach the L1 are called our seminar staff. They are essentially the heroes of our community. Like, they wear a red shirt. They're recognized anywhere they go in our community as kind of like the celebrated few. And we've started taking an opportunity to kind of present them as experts to the external world. So that's something that I think people in our community are going to appreciate and will see more often, is us creating an opportunity to tell our story, to present our expertise to a broader audience. So those are a couple of things that we're doing, just trying to create opportunities to talk to more people and presenting ourselves in the light that we should have been presented in for a long time. So those are two big things. And then the last thing is, like I said at the very beginning of the conversation, perception, right? Like, we have a great bit of awareness, but creating more content that helps dispel those tensions is something that we're really excited about doing. So we've got the team, we have the understanding, we have the awareness. Now it's just about kind of tailoring that message a little bit, creating content that helps people understand that walking in the front door of an affiliate down the street does not have to be a scary thing. Because for a lot of people it is. And for a lot of people that are struggling with making that decision for themselves, like, we don't want to take away that it's a big decision. Like, right, it's still a potential to change your life. Like, if you're having that conversation with yourself and you're like, man, I kind of want to go to the gym, but I'm a little bit nervous about it. Like, we don't want to take away that that's a big decision to make. But we do want to present CrossFit as the option that will make you most likely to continue, that will put you in community with people who are doing the exact same thing as you every day and struggling with that same tension. Because at the end of the day, I've been doing this since 2008, and I still get scared half the time I walk into a gym, right? It's like, man, I know I'm getting ready to do something that's really hard. Whether it's, whether somebody else looks at what I'm doing and says, I could never do that, or whether somebody else looks at what I'm doing and says, man, that guy's really weak. We're all still putting in the effort, and just making the conscious decision every day to put in effort is hard. And so we don't want to take that away. Like, if you want to do CrossFit, you got to show up and do work. But we firmly believe that more people can do it, should do it, and will absolutely love doing it.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So
Solomon, you got to go find the gym.
Yeah.
And next time I'm around, we're going to go drop in somewhere. You're in Texas, right?
No, I'm in Indianapolis. I'm
You're
a hop, skip, and a jump from you in Cincinnati.
Oh, dude,
yeah.
We're throwing down. I'm going to find a gym. Like, it's going to happen. If not before the end of the year, early in 23. For
All
sure.
right. All right.
For
We'll
sure.
make it work. We'll make it work. Where can
Good,
people
man.
find you? Where can people follow them?
I don't want people to find me.
Okay.
If they want to find me, they can totally do that.
Totally.
Twitter's a good place. Instagram's a good place. It's at Knapp on Twitter and at Keithy Knapp on Instagram. But I want people to go find CrossFit. Go to maps.crossfit.com and find the gym. I don't care if you are currently rowing in your garage, or if you are somebody who has no idea what a squat is. Go to maps.crossfit.com, find the gym, walk in the front door. You will change your life.
Love that. Thank you, Keith.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
If you like this video, subscribe. That will make sure that upcoming videos pop up in your feed, because you know how YouTube works. Like, it gets so swamped with tons of extra recommendations. So you want to make sure that this actually pops up, you know? And then the second thing after you subscribe is follow me on Twitter. That's where I'm sharing things that I'm learning, and then who else I'm going to talk to next. So stay tuned for the next video.